At her door. Emily woke up early in the morning. She stretched her arms and got out of bed. The sun was rising and the street outside was quiet. She walked to the kitchen and made a cup of coffee. The warm smell filled the small apartment. She had a long day ahead at work. She grabbed her bag and walked to the door. She reached for the handle and pulled the door open. Then she stopped in shock. A small baby lay on the ground in front of her. The baby was wrapped in a soft blue blanket. It was moving its tiny hands in the air. The baby's face was red and it was crying softly. Emily looked around, but no one was there. Next to the baby, there was a small piece of paper. Emily bent down and picked it up with shaking hands. The note had only a few words. "I now cannot take care of my baby. Please help." The handwriting was messy and weak. Emily's heart started to beat fast. She looked down at the baby again. She had never seen a newborn so close before. The baby's eyes were closed and its tiny mouth moved. Emily felt something strange in her heart. She knew she could not leave the baby alone. She took a deep breath and reached down. Slowly, she picked up the small child in her arms. The baby was light and warm against her chest. Its crying became softer, and its tiny fingers touched her sweater. Emily held it close, feeling nervous and unsure. She looked up and down the empty street again. No one was watching. The city was waking up, but she felt alone. She stepped back into her apartment and closed the door. Her heart was still racing. She looked at the baby in her arms. It was calm now, breathing softly. Emily had no idea what to do next. She had never taken care of a baby before, but she could not walk away from this child. She sat down on the couch, holding the baby carefully. Questions filled her mind. Who left the baby here? Why did they choose her door? What should she do now? She looked at the note again, reading the words one more time. The message was clear. This baby needed her help. Emily took a deep breath and made a decision. She was scared, but she could not ignore this child. She did not know what the future would bring, but in that moment, she knew one thing for sure. She was not going to let this baby be alone again. Emily looked at the baby in her arms. Its tiny fingers moved slowly, touching her sweater. She had never held a baby before, and she felt nervous. The baby was quiet now, breathing softly. Emily stood up and walked across the room. She needed to think. She had to make a plan. But her mind was full of questions, and she had no answers. She sat down and read the note again. The words were simple but heavy. Someone had left this child because they could not take care of it. Emily imagined a mother standing outside her door in the cold morning. She thought about the pain of leaving a baby behind. Her heart ached for the person who wrote the note. Emily knew she had to do something. She could not ignore the baby, but she also could not keep it forever. She reached for her phone and stared at the screen. Should she call the police? Should she take the baby to the hospital? She had no experience with this. She needed help, but she was afraid of making the wrong choice. The baby made a small sound and moved in her arms. Emily looked down and saw its big, dark eyes staring at her. For a moment, everything felt quiet. She touched the baby's tiny hand. It was soft and warm. She smiled without thinking. The baby grabbed her finger tightly. Emily's heart felt full in a way she had never known before. She walked to the kitchen and made a bottle of warm milk. She did not know much about babies, but she had seen her sister feed her nephew before. Emily held the bottle carefully and placed it near the baby's lips. At first, the baby did not react. Then, it started drinking slowly. Emily watched as the small child drank the milk. As she fed the baby, Emily felt a strange sense of peace. She had woken up thinking about her busy workday. Now everything had changed. She had a little life in her hands. The world outside felt distant. The sounds of the city were still there, but they did not matter. In this moment, it was just Emily and the baby. She finished feeding the baby and gently rocked it in her arms. The child yawned and closed its tiny eyes. Emily felt the warmth of the baby against her chest. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She could not turn away. She had to protect this child, even if she did not know how. Emily looked at the clock on the wall. Time was passing, and she had to decide. She could not stay in her apartment all day. She had to act. But for now, she just sat there, holding the baby close. She was scared. But she was also sure of one thing. She was not alone anymore. Emily sat on the couch, holding the baby close. The child slept peacefully, its tiny hands resting against her chest. She could feel its small breaths against her skin. The apartment was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock. Emily had always lived alone, but at this moment she did not feel lonely. She felt something new, something warm. She looked down at the baby and sighed. She had no idea what to do next. She could not go to work and leave the baby here. She also could not keep the child forever. Her life was simple, and she had never planned for something like this. But now, everything had changed, and she had to make a choice. She picked up her phone and stared at the screen. Calling the police seemed like the right thing to do. But what if they took the baby away? What if the child ended up in a place without love? Emily knew the world could be harsh, and she wanted to protect this tiny life. She wished she had more time to think. The baby stirred in her arms, making a small sound. Emily looked down and smiled. She could not believe how quickly she had started caring for this child. Just a few hours ago, she was a woman with a normal life. Now she was holding a baby, feeling emotions she had never felt before. It was confusing, but also beautiful. She stood up and walked to the window. The city outside was busy, cars moving and people rushing to work. Life was going on as usual, but for Emily, nothing was the same. She felt like she was in a different world, a world where only she and this baby existed, connected by something she did not fully understand. She thought about the mother who had left this baby. What was her story? Was she scared, lost, or broken? Did she stand at Emily's door for a long time before leaving her child? Emily could not stop wondering. She wanted to believe that the mother had loved this baby, but had no other choice. The thought made her heart ache. She walked back to the couch and sat down again. She had to do something. But what? She had no experience with babies. She did not know the right way to hold, feed, or care for a child. But somehow, she had managed so far. Maybe love was enough. Maybe love would guide her to the right decision. Emily took a deep breath and made a silent promise. No matter what happened next, she would not let this baby suffer. She would not let this child feel unwanted. Even if she had to let the baby go one day, she would make sure it was safe. She did not know where this path would lead, but she knew she had to follow it. Emily held the baby close, feeling its warmth against her chest. The tiny child slept peacefully, unaware of the questions racing through her mind. She had never expected this. Just yesterday, her life had been simple. She had a routine, a job, and quiet evenings alone. But now, everything was different, and she did not know what to do next. She looked down at the baby's small face. Its cheeks were soft, and its tiny fingers twitched in sleep. Emily felt something deep inside her heart, something strong and unfamiliar. She had never been a mother, but in this moment, she felt protective. She did not want this baby to feel abandoned again. The thought made her hold the child even closer. She stood up and walked across the room. The apartment felt different now, as if it had changed with her. She saw everything with new eyes, the quiet space, the empty table, the single chair by the window. It had always been enough, but now, with a baby in her arms, it felt too small, too lonely. She had never felt this way before. She sighed and sat down, picking up the note again. The words were still the same, but they felt heavier now. Someone had left this baby in front of her door, hoping for help. Emily wondered about the mother's pain. Had she stood there for a long time, afraid to leave? Had she cried before walking away? Emily wished she could know the truth. She reached for her phone, her fingers shaking slightly. She knew she had to make a decision soon. She could not keep the baby forever, no matter how much she already cared. But the idea of calling someone and letting them take the child away made her heart ache. She wished there was another way. She wished she had more time to think. The baby moved in her arms, making a soft sound. Emily looked down and smiled gently. She had never imagined herself in this situation. Just yesterday, she was thinking about work and deadlines. Now she was thinking about diapers, bottles, and baby clothes. It was overwhelming, but at the same time it felt right. She could not explain why. She stood up again and walked to the window. The sun was higher now, and the city was fully awake. People were going to work, talking on phones and living their normal lives. Emily felt like she was in a different world. Everything outside was moving fast, but inside her apartment, time had slowed down. Nothing felt the same anymore. Emily closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. She had no plan, no answers, and no experience. But she knew one thing for sure. She would not let this baby suffer. No matter what, she would make sure this child felt safe and loved. Even if she had to say goodbye one day, she would not walk away without a fight. Emily sat on the couch, holding the baby close to her chest. The child was awake now, staring up at her with wide, curious eyes. Emily smiled softly, amazed by how quickly she had grown attached. She never thought a single morning could change her life so much. But as she looked at the tiny face in her arms, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. She gently rocked the baby, trying to keep it calm. Her phone sat on the table in front of her, still untouched. She knew she had to call someone soon, but she kept hesitating. She was afraid of what would happen next. Would the baby be taken away? Would it end up in a cold, unfamiliar place? Emily could not bear the thought of the child feeling alone again. She stood up and walked around the room, thinking deeply. She had always been independent, always made decisions quickly, but this time it was different. This was not just about her own life. It was about a tiny, helpless child who needed care. Emily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, heavier than anything she had ever known before. She looked at the baby again, her heart full of emotions she could not explain. She had never wanted children before, had never thought about being a mother. But something inside her had changed. She wanted to protect this baby, to make sure it was safe. The idea of handing the child over to strangers made her stomach turn. She sat down again, taking a deep breath. Maybe she could wait a little longer. Maybe she could care for the baby just for a while until she found a better solution. She did not know how long she could do it, but for now, it felt like the right choice. She would not rush. She would give herself time to think. Emily gently touched the baby's tiny fingers, feeling their warmth. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. This baby had come into her life for a reason. And no matter what happened next, she was not going to turn away. Emily walked to the kitchen, holding the baby carefully in her arms. She opened the fridge and looked inside. There was no baby food, no milk, nothing a child could eat. She had never needed those things before. Now she realized how unprepared she was. If she was going to keep the baby, even for a short time, she had to do better. She grabbed an apple for herself and sat down at the table. The baby made small noises, moving its hands in the air. Emily watched, feeling a strange sense of responsibility. This little life depended on her now. It could not speak, could not ask for what it needed. It trusted her completely. And that thought made her heart ache. She picked up her phone and searched for baby care tips. She read about feeding, sleeping, and how to keep a newborn safe. Every sentence felt overwhelming. There was so much she did not know, but she was willing to learn. If this baby was going to stay with her, even for a few days, she wanted to do things right. She put the phone down and gently rocked the baby in her arms. The child yawned, its tiny face relaxed and peaceful. Emily smiled, feeling something deep inside her heart. She had spent her whole life avoiding big responsibilities. She had always been careful, always chosen the easy path. But now, for the first time, she wanted to take a risk. She stood up and walked to the window. The world outside was busy as always. People were rushing, cars were honking, life was moving fast. But inside her small apartment, everything was slow and quiet. Emily had never felt this way before. It was like she was standing at the edge of something new, something important. She thought about the baby's mother again. Where was she now? Was she thinking about her child? Did she regret leaving? Emily wished she could find her, talk to her, understand her pain. But she knew it was impossible. All she could do was take care of this baby, to give it love, even if only for a short time. She walked back to the couch and sat down, holding the baby close. She did not know how long this journey would last. She did not know if she would have to say goodbye one day. But she did know one thing. She would love this child for as long as she could. Emily closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. She had no clear answers, no perfect plan. But she had made her choice. She was not just a woman living alone anymore. She was something more now. She was someone this baby could trust. Thanks for your great engagement today. I hope you have a productive week ahead.